When we think of medieval sword fighters, images of gallant knights and fearsome warriors come to mind. Figures clad in shining armor, engaged in epic duels, their swords whirling in a dance punctuated by clashing metal. However, this romanticized view, largely shaped by cinema and literature, often oversimplifies the complex reality of how medieval Europeans actually fought. The myth of the sword fighter is compelling but misleading, reducing a multifaceted skill set into mere fantasy. Understanding the truth behind this martial art reveals a world that is as technical as it is dramatic, rooted in historical practices and philosophies that extend far beyond what we see on screen. In reality, the art of sword fighting in the medieval era was neither spontaneous nor purely instinctual. It was a disciplined practice developed over centuries, underpinned by rigorous training, strategic thinking, and a deep understanding of both the weapon and the opponent. Various fighting styles emerged, adapted to different contexts, weapons, and personal philosophies. The foundations of these techniques were often codified in manuals, written by masters who dedicated their lives to perfecting their craft. This nuanced approach to combat reveals that it was as much about mental acuity and strategic foresight as it was about physical prowess. Moreover, the instruments of this martial dance, swords themselves, were not mere extensions of the warrior's arm. They were meticulously crafted tools, each type serving its purpose. From the broad and heavy longsword to the more nimble falchion, every weapon had its strengths and weaknesses. These distinctions reflect a rich understanding of metallurgy, design, and the realities of battlefield combat. Much like a musician selects the right instrument for a particular piece, a medieval fighter chose his sword with a specific encounter in mind, aware that each weapon dictated a unique style of engagement. As we peel back the layers of myth surrounding medieval swordsmanship, we begin to grasp that it was a structured discipline grounded in the realities of the time. The death toll of battle was significant, and each participant bore the responsibility not just for their own life, but for those they fought alongside. This sobering truth highlighted the necessity for effective training and a deep comprehension of both offensive and defensive tactics. Warriors were not simply swinging their swords in fury. They were making calculated moves, influenced by their training and a keen understanding of their adversary. With each engagement came lessons learned, some that echoed through the annals of history, others buried with those who did not survive the clash. As we delve deeper into the world of historical European martial arts, HEMA, it is crucial to recognize that this journey is not merely a retrospective glance at how battles were fought centuries ago. Instead, it is an exploration of the profound understanding that shaped these warriors and their techniques. It carries forward lessons that continue to resonate in both martial communities and the study of history itself, elevating our understanding of these remarkable figures far beyond the realm of legend. In the sections that follow, we will unravel the historical context that birthed these practices, providing a clearer picture of how medieval Europeans truly engaged in the art of combat. To understand how medieval Europeans truly engaged in combat, we must first immerse ourselves in the historical context of their time. The Middle Ages, spanning roughly from the 5th to the late 15th century, were marked by feudal structures, shifting power dynamics, and near constant conflict. Society was largely agrarian, with the majority of individuals living in rural areas and tied to local landowners. Military prowess was vital, not only for personal survival, but also for the protection of one's community. As a result, The noble class often maintained a retinue of trained warriors ready to defend their lands and assert dominance through force. Combat during this era was not merely a series of personal duels, but rather a reflection of broader societal values and military necessity. Knights, the elite armored cavalry, became symbolic of chivalric ideals, where valor and honor were paramount. Training and the mastery of combat were critical elements of a knight's education, and their swordsmanship was steeped in the same codes of conduct that governed their behavior off the battlefield. It was a time when reputation mattered. Fear of shame could drive a knight to fight fiercely, not just for victory, but to uphold their social standing. Moreover, the development of warfare during the medieval period was intrinsically linked to technological and tactical shifts. The introduction of crossbows and gunpowder began to alter the landscape of battle, but swords remained an enduring element of personal combat, epitomizing the martial values of the time. The transition from large-scale chaotic battles, where swordsmanship often took a backseat to sheer numbers, to more structured skirmishes, showcased how individuals navigated the chaos of war. This evolution demanded a nuanced understanding of not just one's own weapon, but also an awareness of the enemy's techniques and the broader flow of combat. Within this landscape, the engagement with swords was not left to instinct alone. It was a disciplined craft, honed through rigorous training and grounded in established techniques that would later be codified in martial manuals. These texts were not merely how-to guides. They served as key historical documents that captured the essence of martial skill, blending history, philosophy, and practical advice. These manuals provide invaluable insights into the mindset of medieval combatants, highlighting the careful calculations made in the heat of battle and illustrating an art form developed through centuries of trial and error. The relationship between the fighter and their sword was as profound as that of the craftsman and their tool, a reflection of skill, strategy, and culture woven through the tapestry of medieval life. In our journey to comprehend how these historical events and social frameworks influenced combat, we gain not just a clearer understanding of sword fighting, but a deeper appreciation for the era itself. The mindset, training regimens, and philosophical underpinnings of these warriors reveal a complex portrait of an age where honor and skill defined a man's worth, enabling us to see that the art of swordsmanship was indeed a reflection of the society that cultivated it. This rich backdrop serves as a precursor to our exploration of the actual weapons wielded by these combatants, leading us into a closer examination of the varieties of swords and their specific purposes in the hands of those who wielded them. When we delve into the heart of medieval sword fighting, it's essential to recognize that not all swords were created equal. Each type of sword carried its own purpose, shaped both by the needs of the combatants and the warfare of the time. The broad, sweeping edges of the two-handed sword, or longsword, offered striking power and reach, allowing skilled fighters to deliver devastating blows from a distance. In contrast, the more agile arming sword, typically wielded with one hand, enabled quicker movements and allowed for a blend of slashing and thrusting techniques in closer combat. Each blade tells a story, one that reflects the evolving tactics of warfare and the distinct personalities of the warriors who wielded them. Consider the falchion, a weapon often overlooked, with a curved blade designed to bring the power of a cleaver to the battlefield, proving especially effective against armored opponents. Its design was not just a product of aesthetics, it was rooted in the reality of combat, where a well-placed cut could spell survival or doom. There was also the regal rapier, a later development of the sword lineage, emphasizing thrusting actions over cutting. This shift from a war-focused ethos to one centered on dueling encapsulates the ever-changing nature of society and its values regarding combat and honor. The nature of these swords, therefore, reflects not just technological advancement, but a paradigm shift in combat philosophy. As we navigate this complex landscape of weapon types, it becomes evident that choosing the right sword was as much an expression of personal identity as it was a practical decision. Warriors fought not only with the weapons themselves, but with the stories associated with them, their craftsmanship, their symbolism, and their intended purpose. This multifaceted understanding of different swords underscores that medieval combat was not merely a choreography of strikes and parries, but a rich tapestry woven with the threads of history, social change, and individual experience. In this context, it is also crucial to recognize that the utility of these blades extended beyond physical prowess. The sword was inherently an extension of the warrior. Whether in the courteous dance of a duel or on the chaotic battlefield, the choice of weapon had profound implications for tactics and strategy. A well-trained swordsman would instinctively understand the advantages and limitations of their chosen blade, allowing them to adapt their method of attack and defense to the fluid dynamics of each unique combat situation. The swords themselves, therefore, emerge as not just tools of war, but symbols of the complex interplay between man, weapon, and the broader world. As we transition from the study of these remarkable weapons to their anatomy, we will unveil how their specific features contribute to effective fighting techniques, deepening our appreciation for the artistry and engineering behind what has often been romanticized but rarely understood in depth. The sword, often romanticized in tales of knights and chivalry, is an intricate tool crafted for a multitude of purposes that extends beyond mere combat aesthetics. To truly understand how medieval Europeans wielded their swords, one must delve into the anatomy of these weapons, each component serving a distinct function in the chaos of battle. A sword's hilt, blade, and pommel all come together not merely as disparate parts, but as a finely tuned instrument designed for both offense and defense. The hilt is the connection point between the fighter and the blade itself. Typically wrapped in leather or fabric for a secure grip, it allows for precise manipulation. Just above the grip lies the crossguard, a crucial feature that protects the hands from sliding onto the blade during fierce exchanges. Imagine this section as a lifeline. If the hilt is akin to the throttle of a motorcycle, the crossguard functions as a protective barrier, ensuring that an unexpected slip doesn't result in dire consequences. These elements might seem secondary, but are essential for maintaining control amidst the heat of conflict, enabling the wielder to execute strategies with accuracy. Central to the sword's effectiveness is its blade, often forged from high-carbon steel to impart both strength and flexibility. Depending on the design, the blade could have a tapering point for thrusting or a wider edge for slicing, reflecting the myriad styles that emerge to suit different fighting techniques. This versatility mirrored the realities of battle, where a warrior might find themselves facing armored foes one moment and unarmored opponents the next. The thought behind a sword's design speaks volumes about the demands of the battlefield, where effectiveness and adaptability could determine life or death. Lastly, we must acknowledge the pommel, often overlooked, yet pivotal in its role. Serving as a counterweight to the blade, the pommel helps balance the sword, making it easier to wield with speed and precision. Additionally, it often features designs that could be utilized to strike an opponent in close quarters. In the thick of a skirmish, where every moment might demand swift adjustment or an unexpected maneuver, the pommel stands as a reminder that every detail counts. It is a tool for survival in a world where split-second decisions could change one's fate. The anatomy of a sword is not just about the metal and geometry. It embodies the thought and intent of its maker and user alike. Each element plays a role that carries its own weight in the narrative of medieval combat. As we peel back the layers of these weapons, we start to see that their purpose goes far beyond mere ornamentation or the poetry of battle. Instead, they reflect a practical ethos, a means of mastering the art of war in a time where life hung in the balance, shaped both by the sword and the warrior wielding it. Transitioning from this understanding of weapons, we now turn to the rigorous training regimens undertaken by medieval warriors to wield their swords with skill and ferocity. In the shadowy world of the Middle Ages, the image of the gallant knight wielding a gleaming sword often obscures the rigorous training and intense discipline that shaped medieval warriors into formidable fighters. Like athletes preparing for competition, these men dedicated countless hours to hone their skills, marrying theory with practice in a regimen steeped in tradition and necessity. Combat was not merely the act of swinging a sword. It was a sophisticated dance of strategy, anticipation, and physical prowess. At dawn, when the world was still draped in the gray hues of morning, future warriors would often train in the practice yards of castles or within the confines of their villages. They would engage in a variety of drills aimed at improving their technique, strength, and endurance. Much like a modern-day boxer shadowboxing in front of a mirror, knights and soldiers would repeat fundamental movements, refining their cuts, thrusts, and stances until each one became a reflex. The repetitiveness of practice forged muscle memory, which would prove invaluable in the chaos of battle. Training wasn't limited to swordplay alone. It also involved grappling techniques, a crucial aspect that many today overlook. The importance of mentorship in this training cannot be overstated. Experienced masters shared not just skills, but the contextual knowledge behind each maneuver. They guided younger warriors through the intricacies of combat, emphasizing the importance of strategy over brute force. Lessons were drawn from historical texts on martial arts, which detailed not only techniques, but also principles of combat, much like a modern athlete studying game footage. A warrior might memorize the text of a master, absorbing lessons on timing, distance, and the psychological aspects of engaging an opponent. It was not all serious. Camaraderie blossomed amidst the rigorous training. Whether in jest during practice bouts or through the shared pursuit of improvement, bonds were formed that would endure both in and out of battle. The essence of this community spirit mirrored the collaborative nature of contemporary martial arts dojos, where practitioners support each other's growth. This tightly knit brotherhood instilled a sense of pride and commitment, galvanizing warriors as they prepared to defend their realms. As they polished their skills, medieval warriors understood the importance of adaptability and awareness within the heat of combat. Their training was not a rigid construct, but evolved with every sparring match and every encounter. Warriors learned to read their opponents, adjusting their tactics in real time, much as chess players anticipate their opponent's next move. This nuanced approach lays the groundwork for understanding the dynamics of medieval combat, where the warrior's mind was just as essential as the blade in their hand. The journey of these fighters continues to unfold, leading us to explore the critical role of armor in shaping combat strategies and techniques. In the landscape of medieval combat, armor served not merely as protection, but as a transformative element that redefined the way battles were fought. Initially, it might appear that a knight, clad in shining plate, enjoyed an insurmountable advantage over an opponent wearing little more than a tunic. Armor was meticulously constructed to absorb strikes, deflect blows, and provide mobility, all while creating a psychological barrier that fortified the morale of its wearer. This complex relationship between armor and swordplay is essential for understanding the dynamics of medieval warfare. Like a suit of heavy machinery, armor was designed to interact with the weaponry of the time. Each piece, from the helm to the greaves, was engineered to counter the most common forms of attacks. Chainmail, composed of interlinked metal rings, offered flexibility and defense against slashing blows, while the rigidity of plate armor could withstand thrusts and impacts. However, armor also came with its own set of limitations. The weight and bulk could hinder movement or even fatigue a fighter over time. This meant that a warrior had to master not just their sword, but also how to effectively maneuver and exploit their armor in combat. As a result, where a sword might pierce clothing, hitting a knight in full armor required a different tactical approach, often relying on strategy rather than brute strength. The interplay between sword and armor added layers of tactical complexity to combat. It necessitated the development of techniques specifically designed to defeat armored foes. Thrusting strikes aimed at gaps between plates, careful placements of cuts to exploit weaknesses, and grappling techniques to unbalance or render an opponent vulnerable became crucial components of combat. Indeed, knowing where and how to strike was as important as wielding the sword itself. In close quarters combat, the weight of the armor could turn the scale. The ability of a warrior to efficiently utilize their body in relation to the armor determined their effectiveness in a battle scenario. As we dive deeper into the mindset of the medieval fighter, it becomes clear that cultivating a deep understanding of one's own armor and that of the opponent was paramount. Warriors trained not just in the art of swordplay, but also in leveraging their armor's assets while being acutely aware of its flaws. Just as a pianist learns to navigate the nuances of their instrument, so too did medieval combatants become adept at manipulating the dichotomy of protection and vulnerability presented by their armor. This intricate dance between defense and the offensive capabilities of a sword would shape the very essence of what it meant to engage in combat. Ultimately, the role of armor in medieval combat extended beyond mere protection to become a vital component of strategy and technique. With each fight, the dynamic between sword and armor evolved, pushing warriors to innovate and adapt. As we move on to explore footwork, the foundation that supports every effective fighting style, we will uncover how the steps taken in battle could turn the tide, transforming the unyielding metal into a canvas for skill, power, and artistry. Footwork in medieval combat is often overlooked, yet it is the very foundation upon which effective sword fighting is built. Just as a house requires a strong, stable foundation to endure the test of time, a warrior needs adept footwork to maneuver effectively in battle. This principle was deeply understood by medieval martial artists, who trained rigorously not only to wield their swords, but to master their movement in relation to space, balance, and their opponent. Without competent footwork, even the finest sword techniques could falter, leaving a fighter vulnerable to the unpredictable dynamics of a real confrontation. Medieval warriors employed a range of steps and stances that allowed for agility and power. Think of a fencer gracefully shifting their weight back and forth. Similarly, medieval fighters utilized quick lateral movements to create openings or evade strikes. Stance and positioning enabled them to generate momentum during an attack while maintaining the ability to transition into defense seamlessly. The advent of specific steps, such as the cutting step or cross step, was instrumental. Such footwork permitted fighters to close the gap when initiating an attack, or to retreat swiftly to avoid a sudden thrust aimed at their critical points. The battlefield context also influenced the way footwork was utilized. Imagine the tumult of a skirmish where chaos reigns, and one must navigate not only opponents, but also uneven terrain, obstacles, and the presence of allies. Footwork wasn't simply about moving, it was about strategizing one's position and reaching the best advantageous angle. A warrior who could effectively read the battlefield, shifting with fluidity, had a distinct edge. With each small adjustment in position, they could threaten an adversary's opening while safeguarding their own vulnerabilities. This strategic movement was often rehearsed in drills, where warriors practiced responding instinctively to different combat scenarios. In addition, footwork had a psychological dimension. It conveyed confidence and control, instilling fear in adversaries while bolstering the morale of allies. A well-timed step forward could signal aggression, while a retreat could be a calculated move to lure an opponent into a trap. The interplay of offense and defense, executed through foot movement, highlighted not just physical skills, but mental acuity as well. Just as chess players foresee several moves ahead, so too did medieval combatants anticipate their opponent's actions, relying on their footwork to gain both tactical and psychological advantage as the duel unfolded. As our exploration of sword fighting continues, we must delve into the basic techniques that warriors employed, the cuts, thrusts, and parries that could turn an encounter in an instant. Understanding how these techniques interrelate with footwork will deepen our appreciation for the intricate dance of medieval combat, where movement was the silent yet potent partner in the duel between life and death. In the art of medieval sword combat, the fundamentals revolve around three primary techniques: cuts, thrusts, and parries. Each plays a crucial role in the choreography of battle, where the outcome often hinges on precision and timing. The sword isn't just an extension of the warrior's arm. It embodies an intricate dance of offense and defense. A cut is executed with a deliberate swing of the blade, harnessing the weight and sharp edge to deliver powerful blows. Think of it like the swinging of a pendulum, kinetic energy transferred through motion, aimed at cleaving through armor or flesh. Contrasting with cuts, thrusts offer a distinct range of tactical advantage. They require a more linear approach, capitalizing on the sword's point rather than its edge. A thrust can pierce gaps in armor, exploiting moments where an opponent's defense is weak. This direct attack often aims for vital areas, presenting a challenge akin to threading a needle. Precision is paramount. The thrust extends not only the reach of the fighter, but also their ability to control engagements. It's a reminder that in the intricate game of combat, sometimes less is indeed more. Parries are the safeguard in this deadly duel, acting as the shield against incoming strikes. When executed well, a parry redirects an opponent's energy, allowing the fighter to maintain their rhythm and prepare for a counterattack. The effectiveness of a parry lies in its timing and footwork, as a well-timed maneuver can turn the tide of an encounter. Picture a chess match where every move anticipates the rival's next step. Successful parries allow practitioners to seize the initiative, shifting from defense to offense in an instant. The interplay of these techniques forms the backbone of martial training in the medieval period. Warriors spent countless hours honing their skills, practicing cuts until smooth, thrusts until they became instinctive, and parries until they could execute them effortlessly in the heat of battle. It's this rigorous training that transformed raw potential into lethal efficiency. The techniques not only reveal the physicality of swordsmanship, but also mirror the psychological landscape of warriors, where each motion conveyed intention, power, and the perennial struggle for dominance, embodying a timeless narrative that still resonates today. As we move forward, we will explore how the concepts of distance and timing amplify these basic techniques. Understanding these elements can be the difference between victory and defeat, guiding the sword fighter through the chaos of combat with the grace of a seasoned performer on a great stage. In the cacophony of a battlefield, the distance between combatants can be as crucial as the swords they wield. This concept is central to understanding how medieval Europeans fought. An intricate dance of timing, perception, and spatial awareness. Distance dictates not merely the effectiveness of an attack, but also the survival of the fighter. To grasp this, one must envision the dynamics of a duel, where the space between opponents is fluid, shifting with each step, thrust or feint. Imagine standing just out of reach, where each companion's eyes dart for vulnerability, and where the slightest miscalculation can lead to a fatal mistake. Timing, closely intertwined with distance, is equally significant. It's the precise moment when one fighter decides to close the gap, executing a strike or evading an attack. This is reminiscent of a predator stalking its prey, waiting patiently until the opportune moment to strike. Medieval combatants relied on both instinct and training to gauge this delicate balance, learning to read their opponent's body language, anticipating when they might attack or defend. A well-timed maneuver could mean the difference between victory and death. The blade is not a simple tool. It becomes an extension of the warrior's will, requiring impeccable timing to exploit gaps in defense. Practitioners of historical European martial arts, HEMA, emphasize the concept of measure, the distance at which a fighter can effectively strike without being struck in return. This idea not only applies to armed combat, but also transposes to unarmed encounters. Fighters would triangulate themselves constantly, manipulating distance to create openings while guarding against counterattacks. It is a strategy deeply rooted in psychology. By threatening an attack, a fighter can lure their opponent into a less advantageous position. Moreover, maintaining distance is a lesson in self-discipline. Unlike many modern interpretations that glorify flashy swordplay, medieval combat was characterized by calculated, methodical movements. Every thrust, parry, and retreat serves a purpose, guided by the principles of distance and timing that dictate the flow of combat. Training regimens for medieval warriors were intensive, emphasizing drills that honed these skills. As warriors practiced day in and day out, they developed a keen sense of their physical space, transitioning from a hunter seeking a target to a tactician who must chart every advantage. As we peel back the layers of medieval sword fighting, we uncover a web of strategy that seems deceptively simple, but is strikingly complex. This understanding of distance and timing sets the stage for diving deeper into defensive techniques. How does one preserve life against an adversary intent on closing the gap? What maneuvers allow a fighter to deflect a strike while positioning themselves for a counterattack? These are questions that pave the way to exploring the defensive techniques necessary for survival in this brutal age of swordplay. In the crowded arena of medieval combat, the ability to avoid an opponent's blade was as essential as the strength to wield one's own sword. Defensive techniques formed the backbone of any effective fighting style, allowing warriors not just to survive, but to seize the initiative in the heat of battle. Imagine standing in a theater, the tension palpable, every move precise, every reaction critical. Just as an experienced dancer flows with the rhythm of music, a skilled swordsman flows with the instinct of combat, exploiting distance, timing, and body movement to dodge the lethal arcs of steel. At the core of these techniques was the principle of distance management, often likened to a game of chess. Every action triggers a response, but the awareness to anticipate an opponent's next move is what separates a novice from a seasoned warrior. Swordsmen trained extensively to judge when to retreat, sidestep, or pivot, all while keeping their center of balance intact. These movements were often fluid and explosive. A sidestep could transform a narrow escape into an opportunity for a counterattack. Just as a matador dances with danger, the sword fighter had to understand and manipulate the spacing between themselves and their adversary. The role of armor adds further complexity. Heavy plates could restrict movement, but also provided crucial defense against a direct hit. Many combatants developed specific techniques to make the most of their armor, leveraging its protective quality while maintaining mobility. In this dynamic, a fighter might weave out of a strike, their armor clinking softly, repositioning not just to evade, but to align themselves for a strike of their own, all while remaining conscious of their own vulnerabilities. The ability to utilize armor effectively was an intricate dance of skill, strategy, and adaptability. Each swing of enemy steel demanding a swift mental recalibration. Yet, the greatest weapon a fighter possessed was not just their sword or their armor. It was their understanding of the human element in battle, the unpredictability of an opponent's mind. Even in the chaos of melee, understanding human psychology allowed the swordsman to predict actions and exploit openings. For instance, feints could sow confusion, compelling an opponent to overcommit to a defensive posture, rendering them susceptible to a swift countercut. Grasping the nuances of this interaction was vital in a world where life and death hinged on a mere heartbeat. As we delve deeper into the realm of grappling techniques in the next section, it becomes clear that avoiding the blade is only one facet of a comprehensive defensive strategy. With each shift in focus, we uncover the multifaceted artistry of medieval combat, wherein the sword served not only as a weapon, but as a catalyst for critical interaction, a vibrant exchange marked by anticipation, intuition, and instinctive movement. In this world, every duel was not merely a clash of arms, but a profound dialogue played out in the theater of life and death, in the high-stakes world of medieval combat, where the clash of steel often overshadowed the subtleties of skill. Grappling played a crucial role that is frequently overlooked. While swords may have been the primary weapons of choice, the reality of battle demands recognition of grappling techniques as an integral aspect of sword fighting. Just as a thundering storm is not only about the lightning that flashes, but also the wind that carries it, grappling served as both an extension of the sword's reach and a vital tool in a warrior's arsenal. When swords were drawn and combat ensued, situations could quickly escalate beyond the realm of slicing steel. Imagine two fighters, swords clashing, their blades locked in a stalemate. In that fleeting moment, the warrior with grappling skills had the chance to maneuver into a more advantageous position. Techniques such as wrestling, joint locks, and throws were not simply supplementary skills. They provided a tactical advantage, allowing a fighter to neutralize their opponent's weapon or even redirect it. Grappling separated the mere swordsman from the accomplished warrior, granting a dynamic layer to the engagement that involved both brute strength and strategic finesse. Historically, grappling techniques were reflected in the writings of renowned masters like Johannes Lichtenauer and Sigmund Ringek, who recognized the importance of these skills in their treatises. Within the art of the longsword, they detailed principles such as the rest, where one could seamlessly transition from swordplay to grappling. This revelation transforms the sword not just into a weapon, but also as a means to facilitate close-quarter combat. The sword becomes an extension of the fighter's body, and grappling techniques leverage the sword's position to gain control. As the fight unfolded, warriors could ensnare their opponents in a vise-like grip, using leverage and timing to unbalance them. Because ultimately, a fighter who could bring their opponent to the ground often had the upper hand. The gravity of grappling is further illustrated when considering the close confines of any battlefield. In the chaos of melee combat, where multiple combatants clashed, a core understanding of grappling could determine survival. Taking a warrior down swiftly often meant the difference between life and death, a realization that introduced the concept of utilizing a sword in one hand while employing grappling techniques with the other. Think of it as a dance of interconnected movements, each one informing the next. As we explore the intricacies of historical European martial arts, it becomes clear that grappling was not merely a fallback option, but an essential tactic that allowed fighters to transition fluidly through the various stages of combat. As we turn the pages of history to unearth real-life duels and competitions, the stories reveal just how often grappling turned the tide in battles and personal encounters. From the dusty arenas of village duels to the deadly intrigue of royal contests, grappling was frequently the deciding factor in these life-or-death situations. Understanding this element of sword fighting deepens our appreciation of the martial culture of the Middle Ages, illustrating that behind the glinting steel and grandiloquent bravado lay a rich tradition, encapsulated in the simple yet profound art of grappling. This historical context sets the stage for our next exploration, the real-life duels that showcase these principles in action. Throughout history, real-life duels have encapsulated a theater of bravery, honor, and sometimes tragic folly. The stories of these encounters evoke both fascination and a humbling understanding of combat's brutal reality. One such tale takes us to the 15th century, where two knights clashed on a French field, each vying for glory and a rightful claim to land. The duel was not merely a display of martial skill, but a deeply rooted practice tied to societal norms and codes of honor. Here, the stakes were high, and the traditions guiding them were rigidly upheld by the very fabric of chivalric society. When examining duels, it's critical to appreciate the gravity of the circumstances surrounding these encounters. Unlike the depictions we often see in popular culture, actual duels were governed by strict rules. The judicial duel, or trial by combat, was seen as a legitimate method of resolving disputes. Participants had to adhere to honor codes, which dictated not only how they should conduct themselves in combat, but also how to behave leading up to it. Consider the case of the infamous duel between the German knight Hans von Keppel and his opponent, Burkhard von Ringenberg, in the early 1400s. They met under the watchful gaze of both nobility and common folk, wielding swords not just as weapons, but as extensions of their honor. The methods of combat displayed during these duels reveal much about the martial culture of the time. Techniques were not purely about striking. They included a complex dance of footwork, timing, and an acute understanding of both one's own capabilities and those of the adversary. Take, for instance, the meticulous strategy employed during the duel between English knight Sir John Hawkwood and a rival in Italy. Tactics such as baiting and feints were essential. Hawkwood thrived on quick pivots and sudden lunges, demonstrating how dueling was as much about mental acuity as physical prowess. This psychological element, entwined with the physical demands of the swordplay, forced warriors to refine their skills continuously. Yet, duels could often turn tragic. While the allure of glory motivated many, the risks were substantial, with many engagements resulting in irrevocable loss. Historical records speak of the duel between the French noblemen Gaston de Foix and Pierre de Montal, where the expected honor morphed into a gruesome spectacle that left families torn apart and lives shattered. Such narratives prompt reflection on the human condition and the lengths to which individuals would go to defend their name and honor. They bring forth a recognition that these duels, while shaping the course of their time, invariably forged painful legacies, setting in motion cycles of vengeance and honor disputes. So, as we peel back the layers of these past confrontations, we are left with not only tales of prowess, but profound questions about the nature of conflict and resolution. Every encounter was a meticulous blend of history, societal expectation, and the inexorable human desire for recognition. As we move forward in our exploration of historical European martial arts, let us carry with us the lessons engraved in these duels, that the art of sword fighting extends beyond mere techniques. It weaves a narrative integral to the fabric of medieval life. Historical manuals serve as a crucial window into the world of medieval sword fighting, offering detailed insights into the techniques, philosophies, and strategies employed by master swordsmen. These manuals, written by practitioners and theorists of the time, encapsulate centuries of knowledge and experience, blending practicality with a deep understanding of combat principles. They depict not just the mechanics of fighting, but also the very culture that surrounded these practices, revealing how warriors approached both physical confrontation and the mindset necessary for survival in a violent age. One of the most striking revelations from these texts is the emphasis on technique over brute strength. Just as a well-crafted bow can release an arrow with precision, a skilled swordsman understands the subtleties of motion, leverage, and timing. Manuals like Johannes Lichtenauer's Zettel or Sigmund Ringnick's treatises offer diagrams and written instructions that convey a rich vocabulary of movements, from specific cuts and guards to intricate sequences. By studying these historical documents, modern practitioners of historical European martial arts, HEMA, uncover a treasure trove of strategies that transcend time, reminding us that the essence of effective fighting lies in finesse and thoughtfulness rather than mere physical power. What emerges is a tapestry of interconnected ideas: the relationship between distance and timing, the significance of footwork, and the importance of remaining calm under pressure. These manuals teach us that to excel in combat, one must cultivate not just physical skills, but also mental agility. The ancient teachings reflect that mastery involves storytelling. Each movement relates to a broader narrative of intention and reaction. Just as a dancer interprets music with grace, so too must the swordsman flow through the complexities of combat, responding dynamically to opponents while executing pre-learned techniques. In essence, the study of these historical manuals reveals the artistry involved in sword fighting, elevating it from mere combat to a sophisticated form of expression. By immersing ourselves in the philosophies chronicled by medieval masters, we not only gain insights into the practical aspects of fighting, but also engage with a deeper understanding of medieval society, morality, and the code of honor that permeated their lives. This exploration serves as a reminder that the past is not a distant memory, but a wellspring of knowledge, teaching us vital lessons about human resilience, creativity, and the enduring nature of martial traditions. As we transition into the evolution of historical European martial arts, we find ourselves reflecting on not just what was learned, but how those lessons have adapted and shaped modern practices. The journey through time, from these ancient manuals to today's HEMA community, illustrates not only the continuity of martial techniques, but also their transformation in response to changing societal values and technological advancements. As we delve into the evolution of historical European martial arts, it's essential to appreciate that this journey is not merely a chronological recounting of techniques and weapons, but rather a complex tapestry intricately woven with cultural, societal, and practical threads. From the late medieval period to the Renaissance, the systems of combat underwent significant transformations, influenced by the social constructs of the time, the technological advancements in weaponry, and the growing documentation of martial principles in treatises. The fight for survival was not just individual. It was a communal practice deeply embedded in the very fabric of society. In the earlier days, martial training and techniques were largely dictated by necessity. Combat evolved from the chaotic battlefield, where survival was paramount. As time progressed, the introduction of more structured forms of training emerged, laying the groundwork for the martial arts systems we recognize today. This period saw the emergence of the knightly class, whose focus on personal honor and combat prowess encouraged a more disciplined approach to fighting. Knight schools began to proliferate, providing structured training that emphasized not just the use of the sword, but a holistic understanding of combat that included grappling, group tactics, and even the psychological aspects of confronting an opponent. With the establishment of fencing masters and the proliferation of fencing schools in urban centers, the teaching of swordsmanship became more formalized. Texts such as Johannes Lichtenauer's Settle, or the later works of Sigmund Ringich and others, became essential resources. These manuals meticulously documented techniques, principles of movement, and even the underlying philosophies of combat, transforming martial arts into an intellectual pursuit as much as a physical one. The shift from spontaneous combat to a systematic approach allowed practitioners to analyze and refine their skills in ways that were previously unimaginable. This evolution was not mere adaptation. It was innovation, leading to the development of diverse styles adapted to different weapons and environments, each possessing unique techniques, footwork, and grappling methods. The Renaissance further pushed this evolution by integrating art and science into martial practice. Weapons became more refined, featuring intricate designs and improved balance, which in turn influenced the fighting styles. The rise of the rapier, a thrusting weapon, marked a significant shift in European swordsmanship, emphasizing agility, precision, and strategy. Amid these changes, it became increasingly clear that martial arts were not just techniques for physical dueling, but were inherently tied to cultural identity, societal norms, and the evolving concept of honor. Practitioners needed to embody not just the skills, but also the ideals of chivalry and martial ethics. In contemplating the evolution of historical European martial arts, what truly stands out is its dynamic response to the changing landscapes of society. Each era marked by war, peace, innovation, and art, contributed layers to the martial practices we study today. These historical practices are not relics, but living traditions that continue to inform modern martial arts. As we move forward, we will explore how these ancient techniques transcend the ages, leading into the resurgence of HEMA in contemporary times, revealing the connections between past and present martial practices and their broadening reach in our culture. In recent years, historical European martial arts, or HEMA, has experienced a remarkable resurgence, capturing the imaginations of practitioners and enthusiasts alike. This revival has transformed what was once seen as a niche interest into a vibrant community dedicated to exploring the martial traditions of medieval Europe. In many ways, this modern practice mirrors the earnest efforts made by medieval warriors who honed their skills through rigorous training and a commitment to the martial arts of their time. Today's practitioners draw not just on their fascination with swords and combat, but also on a rich tapestry of historical traditions, training methods, and sometimes even the very manuals penned by masters of the past. Participants in HEMA embody a diverse array of individuals, united by a shared passion for authenticity and historical accuracy. Classes often begin with foundational techniques and historical contexts, allowing practitioners to immerse themselves deeply into the mechanics of the art as they study the various schools of thought from medieval Europe. Some may feel a sense of awe when holding a replica longsword, recognizing that in their hands they hold not just metal, but the echoes of countless battles fought in service of honor and survival. The thrill of practicing these ancient techniques, from fundamental strikes to complicated grappling, invites a deep kinship with history itself, even as practitioners adapt these methods to modern tastes and methods of learning. Training sessions often blur the lines between study and sport. Objectives range from mastering intricate movements to endurance drills that mimic the pressures of combat. Every clash of steel and movement through space is a direct dialogue with history, and for many practitioners, this connection brings a unique sense of fulfillment. HEMA events, tournaments, and workshops have sprung up worldwide, creating spaces where martial artists can share knowledge, improve their skills, and celebrate their shared dedication to historical accuracy. This communal aspect reinforces bonds that transcend mere physical activity. They evolve into a fellowship underscored by a collective appreciation for an art form that has survived the ravages of time. The teaching of HEMA also reflects the scholarly rigor involved in its practice. Participants analyze historical texts and manuals, attempting to distill the wisdom inscribed by masters long gone. This embracing of primary sources makes the pursuit an active form of historiography, a means of bringing the past to life through practical application. Yet, HEMA is not just an academic endeavor. It combines physical expression with cognitive engagement, enabling practitioners to explore martial theory as they simultaneously experience the body's capabilities. It challenges participants to embrace a multifaceted understanding of combat, one that intertwines mind and body, knowledge and action. Looking forward, the future of HEMA promises to be as dynamic and multifarious as its history. The increased interest in historical techniques is helping preserve martial legacies that might have otherwise been forgotten. In a world where individual expressions of identity are constantly evolving, HEMA stands as a powerful reminder of the interconnectedness of our past and present. Each cut, thrust, and parry resonates not only with the cultures they originated from, but also with the ongoing search for meaning in physical expression. As The martial arts community continues to grow. It is poised to inspire a new generation to take up the sword, not just as a tool of warfare, but as a bridge to an intricate and colorful historical world. As we delve into the comparative analysis of historical European martial arts, HEMA, and modern martial arts, we discover that beneath their varied surfaces lies a common foundation rooted in principles of combat, discipline, and personal development. Though separated by centuries, HEMA and contemporary martial disciplines share essential characteristics, yet they diverge sharply in execution, philosophy, and the cultural contexts that shape them. Understanding these nuances not only sheds light on how medieval warriors fought, but also enriches our appreciation for the martial arts that we practice today. One way to grasp these differences is to look at the fundamental philosophies behind each approach. HEMA practitioners, often referred to as historical martial artists, immerse themselves in the techniques and philosophies documented in manuals from the Middle Ages. This engagement is not merely about physical prowess, it's an intellectual endeavor requiring a deep understanding of historical context, mechanics, and strategy. In contrast, modern martial arts, such as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Muay Thai, often emphasize efficiency and simplicity as a pathway to effectiveness in self-defense or competition. They are frequently crafted around contemporary understanding of anatomy and psychology, aiming to produce immediate results in practical scenarios. While both paths prioritize effective combat, HEMA's focus on historical accuracy and the reconstruction of ancient techniques sets it apart from the spontaneity often found in modern disciplines. Additionally, the training methods diverge in significant ways. In HEMA, students are trained to replicate movements and techniques that have been preserved through centuries, ranging from longsword techniques to grappling. This often involves a meticulous approach to drills and sparring that not only hones physical skills, but also fosters a sense of historical connection. Conversely, modern martial arts tend to center around dynamic sparring and competition, with an emphasis on adaptability and personal fighting style. The instructional techniques reflect these aims, with HEMA placing a stronger focus on theoretical understanding derived from textual sources, while modern martial arts encourage experiential learning through live action and competition. Moreover, the combative environments themselves shape the experiences of practitioners. HEMA is often practiced in settings that evoke the atmospheres of medieval combat, where the weight of history permeates the air and informs every clash of blade, while emphasizing controlled conditions to ensure safety amidst potentially lethal techniques. Modern martial arts, on the other hand, often operate in dynamic training environments, driven by the thrill of competition and the necessity for real-time adaptability. This creates a rich tapestry of styles, with each discipline revealing its own narrative influenced by both its historical legacy and contemporary interpretation. Ultimately, the relationship between HEMA and modern martial arts invites a deeper reflection on how combat arts evolve and adapt over time. Both carry forward the legacy of self-defense and personal growth, yet they do so through lenses shaped by very different historical circumstances and cultural values. In this way, exploring the intricacies of these martial arts not only bridges the past and the present, but also provides valuable insights into the broader human experience of struggle and resilience. As we prepare to move forward, we will further explore how culture and society have wielded their influence on fighting styles, illustrating the complex interplay that has defined martial arts across the ages. Medieval combat was not merely a physical expression of violence. It was deeply intertwined with the cultural fabric of the societies from which it sprang. The ways in which individuals fought with swords reflected not only regional customs, but also the values and hierarchies inherent in their cultures. A knight's demeanor in combat, for instance, could be seen as an embodiment of chivalric ideals, emphasizing honor and bravery above mere victory. Across different regions of Europe, these cultural nuances shaped fighting techniques, with each society fostering unique interpretations of martial artistry. Consider the contrast between the German and Italian schools of swordsmanship. The German tradition, influenced by the pragmatic realities of warfare, often emphasized powerful, decisive strikes and a robust application of grappling techniques. This approach mirrored the feudal structure of medieval Germany, where disputes often led to violent confrontations and warriors needed to quickly incapacitate their opponents. In contrast, the Italian tradition, as distilled through masters like Fiore de' Liberi, focused more on fluidity and finesse. The language of the fight was almost poetic, with an emphasis on style and elegance that reflected the influence of the Renaissance and a growing appreciation for the arts and humanism. Furthermore, the role of societal hierarchy played a pivotal part in determining who fought and how. While knights were often trained from a young age in the art of war, common soldiers had varying degrees of access to martial training. The class distinctions inevitably influenced their fighting styles. Knights had the privilege of years of dedicated practice, while lower-class fighters might resort to sheer instinct and survival techniques. This disparity leads to a fascinating exploration of how a person's background shaped not only their access to training, but also the form and function of their weapons' use. Religion also left its mark on the battlefield, with the Crusades exemplifying a dramatic intersection of martial prowess and spiritual fervor. Knights driven by a sense of divine purpose often fought with an intensity that transcended mere physicality, infusing their combat styles with a fervent belief in their righteousness. Such motivations could lead to brutal engagements that blurred the lines between martial prowess and moral absolutism. The resulting techniques reflected not just personal mastery of arms, but also an embodiment of their faith and duty, adding layers of meaning to each encounter, turning combat into a narrative woven into the larger tapestry of history. Through each of these layers, be it class, regional tradition, or religious motivation, the fight became more than mere muscle and metal. It was a complex conversation between individuals and their societies, echoing shared values, conflicts, and aspirations. As we peel back these layers, the context shapes our understanding, guiding us toward a more profound comprehension of not just how medieval Europeans fought, but why they fought the way they did. This exploration paves the way for our next discussion, where we will connect these historical insights to the ways they inform modern practices and interpretations of historical European martial arts today. In the cinematic world, sword fights are often imbued with drama, flashy choreography, and a sense of invincibility that strays far from reality. Hollywood's portrayal of medieval swordsmanship can lead us to believe that combat is an elegant ballet of steel, a dance where the protagonist pirouettes through danger, effortlessly disarming opponents with a flick of the wrist. However, the truth of medieval combat was grittier and more complex. Reality dictated not only the mechanics of fighting, but also a deeply ingrained understanding of human limitations and environmental factors. Instead of choreographed duels, warriors faced a visceral struggle for survival, where the outcome was often dictated by training, skill, and sheer luck. While the glint of a sword may captivate the audience, the heavy burden of armor often goes unnoticed in these portrayals. In real skirmishes, the weight and distribution of both weaponry and protective gear significantly influenced how battles unfolded. The impact of a blade meeting armor was a cacophony of sound and energy, often becoming a war of attrition rather than a quick and flashy defeat. Instead of one opponent falling gracefully to the ground, most encounters concluded with laborious grappling or chaotic exchanges, revealing how the reality of life and death in battle transcended the glamorous spectacle typically depicted on screen. Moreover, while many films lean on the dramatic notion of precise strikes and swift executions, the robust reality of fighting emphasized the value of technique over theatrical flourish. Techniques derived from ancient manuals stress fundamentals such as distance, angle, and timing, which are practical necessities rather than mere tools for a gripping narrative. Scouts and skilled fighters knew that the line between victory and defeat rested not just on one's sword, but on an intimate understanding of the opponent's movement and the ever-changing battlefield. Training routines focused on repetition and mastering basic cuts and defenses were critical. Thus, the artistry of the sword was rooted less in flamboyant displays and more in refined skill built over countless hours of practice. The emotional weight of combat is often sanitized in films, where heroes triumph against insurmountable odds, leaving absent the stark reality of mortality. Real medieval combat was raw and brutal. Battles were not the polished performances audiences enjoy today, but rather were filled with chaos, fear, and the palpable dread of death. Men faced each other not just with weapons, but with the specter of loss. And the martial competence required to navigate such peril was far removed from the glorified versions seen on screen. Understanding these nuances enhances our appreciation for historical European martial arts, HEMA, today, as practitioners strive to reconnect with the authentic experiences of their medieval predecessors. As we peel back the layers of myths surrounding medieval sword fighting, we confront a juxtaposition of romanticized imagination against a gritty historical tapestry of struggle and survival. Each clash of swords, every careful maneuver, tells a richer story than any cinematic rendering can hope to capture. In this interplay of fear, skill, armor, and weaponry lies a profound respect for the martial traditions that have shaped our understanding of combat throughout the centuries. Embracing this complexity not only honors the warriors of the past, but also enriches the practices of HEMA enthusiasts in contemporary settings, promoting a deeper clarity of purpose behind every thrust and parry, and a recognition of the historical roots from which these techniques emerged.